Hey there, and welcome back to Baldur's Gate 3. My name is Pete, and today we complete what is arguably one of the most infamous boss fights in the entire game, as we set out to finally close the Underdark chapter of this story for good. Before we do though, a quick recap. Last time we freed True Soul Nier from a cave-in and witnessed a group of Durga stage a coup against the Drow, and despite promising our allegiance to the mutineers, we switched sides and joined Nier against them. Through careful actions in combat, we ultimately dispatched not only of the mutineers, but also of the Durga loyal to the Absolute, until only Nier remained. We learned plenty about the cultist's mission from him, and afterwards found a way to circumvent his legendary action in order to serve a fitting punishment. So, the Grym Forge gnomes are now freed, and we set our sights on the journey to Moonrise Towers. However, the legend of the Adamantine Forge and its mysterious guardian still remains, and today we'll take a closer look at both. To get us started though, let's quickly do some trading. From Blurg here we can purchase a Cloud Giant Finger and a Hyena Ear, both useful alchemy ingredients, and also still in the Myconid colony we find Derith Bone Cloak, from whom we can grab Hastening Spores, 2 new Smoke Powder Bombs, and a Gorth Eye Stalk, another rare alchemy ingredient. Once all purchases have been made then, we can fast travel back to Grymforge.
The architects who built this must have been remarkable. Pity their vision didn't stand the test of time.
All's not lost. I mean, just look at this place.
You've quite the knack for finding the bright side of things, haven't you?
Hope keeps you going.
After some banter between Karlach and Gale, whose level up I am very much aware of, but I think I want to hold off of it for the moment, we then return to the site of last episode's slaughter. One dead body we forgot to loot, although this one has been dead for much longer, and it carries an incomplete sending spell, once again warning someone of the hellish intruders that eventually caused Grymforge's downfall and destruction. We can also see over here that there's an area on the other side, but the passage on the ground here is blocked, so let us retrace our steps a little bit and find another way across. Using only Sylvia for this, we can jump across to the metal walkway here. Unfortunately, it ends just above where we fought last episode, but there's another section on the other side and a moving platform connecting the two.
Platform's covered in rust. Must be older than bone dust.
All we need to do now is move that platform to transport Sylvia over, and then lower it again so that she doesn't suffer any fall damage. All on her own, Miss Hairyfoot can now advance just a little bit further, discovering a waypoint nearby, and so the rest of the party can now fast travel to meet back up with her. Let's get to looting. We can find a 4th mold on the table here, this one for a mace, and there's a few skeletons in the area too, carrying weapons, and the second one here also a dusty book revealing them to be former followers of Shar. Let's move in a western direction, up the stairs here.
Forge your blade in the fires, and raise it in the mistress's name.
So, this forge clearly also wants an instrument of Shar's followers. Their skeletal remains can be found nearby too. A scribbled note on this one here speaks of an issue finding more mithral, the ore needed to forge adamantine. After large quantities were used constructing something called Grym. For all we know, this could be the Forge Guardian we have read about. After picking up the mold for a heavy splint armor, we then proceed up another set of stairs and loot a chest for gold and some scrolls. Some lesser valuables can be found in the nearby containers too. On the table then, a forge construction log detailing experiments with the forge's hammer and temperatures of the magma used in the process. Now, there is a ledge here that we could drop down from with Featherfall. However, we're not going to do that just yet. Instead, let us head back to the entry area with the waypoint and turn our attention south, where we can not only spot the 6th and final mold, but also a group of animated armors nearby. However, from our journey to Lenore's Arcane Tower, we already know how to deal with those. The anti-magic field from a Susu flower will render them completely harmless, so after grabbing a few of those from our camp inventory, let's have Karlach sneak around and place them next to all 4 suits of armor, which are subsequently incapacitated. And yes, these armors would have been hostile to us right away. There is no way to talk your way out of this fight. So, let's get to it. I don't think we need to drag this out for any longer than necessary. We start things off with Sylvia, who can strike from stealth. This actually grants us surprise against our enemies, not that we would need it, although it has its benefits, specifically for Astarion, who is now guaranteed to crit with every hit he lands. Unfortunately, with a respectable armor class of 18, our enemies are quite hard to hit, and even surprise and the incapacitated condition do not change anything about that. Karlach, however, remains ever dependable with her returning pike, while Gale is mostly in the party for the fight that comes after this one, and there is no need to waste spell slots with him just yet. And so the first turn of combat ends, 1 enemy down, 2 more heavily damaged. Astarion gets us the next kill, before Sylvia follows things up with one of her own. Her second shot here leaves the last enemy standing with 19 hit points, and that's not enough to withstand another throw attack from Karlach. And there we go, 1 group of enemies down, but it wasn't the last fight in today's video. Before we jump head first into the next one though, let's loot the area. The armors themselves carry mostly just weapons, but we do of course also want to make sure to pick our Susu blooms back up and return them to camp. Who knows what else they might be good for down the line. Let us finally also grab the medium armor molds and then proceed along a small rocky path curving around the south. We can find a Dark Justicia mask on a skeleton here, but the bonus to intimidation checks is not really needed. Moving on then, things get hot as we get closer to the molten lava here. Thankfully, there is a path across so that we can safely reach the mithral vein over here. Let's destroy it to grab some of the ore that we apparently need to use the Adamantine Forge. Right nearby, we can also spot a hidden treasure. The loot inside is randomized for all I know, but it is decently good stuff. Heading back to the ledge here then, we can see that the lava below is bubbling and bursting frequently, and if we pay close attention we can also quickly see why. A lava elemental is patrolling down here, a massive creature that regains tons of health if it starts its turn in lava, is resistant to piercing damage but vulnerable to cold damage, and most importantly, not friendly. So, let's prepare for another fight. We have some ice arrows on Sylvia and Astarion, Gale has Morning Frost equipped for a little bit of extra cold damage, and Karlach has grabbed a few hand axes from camp, as they do slashing instead of piercing damage when thrown. With the entire party in stealth mode, we then want to cast Featherfall and drop down with Astarion and get ready for the ambush.
Lava's erupting. Is churning. Better watch my step. One with the elemental inside.
The party comments on the lava elemental's presence, and we launch our first ice arrow. And with that, combat begins, and once more we have surprise on our side. That means Astarion gets his action back, and all hits from now on are automatic criticals, which unfortunately only evens out the piercing resistance. The real damage comes from the ice arrows, but sadly this time the elemental saves against the damage. For the Dread Ambusher attack and the bonus action offhand shot then, we cannot use any special arrows, and still, in total, Astarion just dealt 42 points of damage, not too bad. Now, let's get Karlach involved. She's got the Bow of Awareness equipped for a small initiative boost, and can now throw down one of those hand axes. That deals 18 points of damage, and she's placed before the elemental in the initiative order. That's lovely. Let's throw again. 21 damage, she just never disappoints, does she? And so, with only 1/3 of its health left, we call upon Sylvia with an ice arrow of her own. Sadly, despite poor dexterity, the elemental saves again, but we can also shoot again. This time the arrow connects, and we save the bonus action as a backup for later. Originally, I brought Gale in to upcast a cold damage chromatic orb, but I think a simple Ray of Frost cantrip should suffice at this point. And there we go. With a critical hit, the lava elemental goes down, and Karlach gets herself another inspiration. Now, at this point, we want to have the rest of the party drop down to Astarion 2. Thankfully, Gale can cast Featherfall as well, and we can regroup on this little island in the lava. Using Karlach, who can jump the furthest, we now want to loot a few things. Most importantly, the skeleton over here carrying an adamantine key, and the lava elemental itself, which in my opinion disappoints a bit when it comes to loot. After hopping back up onto the central platform, we then want to start a small southwestern loop. There are 2 skeletons and a Maragon halberd to be found here, more remnants of a fight from long ago. Crossing over a few more safe outcroppings, we then reach another skeleton. This one carries only a dagger, and finally, just beyond one more, this one also with another halberd next to it. From here we can then return and eventually make it safely back to the rest of the party. Switching back to Sylvia, we can now loot the skeleton on the altar and then turn our attention to the chest unlocked with the adamantine key we just found. Inside we find an amulet, and we may have read about this one already, sentient and cursed, causing its wearers fits of uncontrollable laughter.
Thou hast come!
The amulet is heavy, but holds a subtle warmth, like it was left under the sun. Suddenly the metal surges with heat. You feel great power and an overwhelming urge to laugh.
Can thou endure?
Right, so sounds like we have indeed found the amulet that was mentioned in a Dark Justicia's journal, although there was no mention of a being inhabiting it, so let's try to speak to it.
The urge to laugh intensifies. Talking jewelry, that's hilarious.
Endure!
Well then, fighting the urge is kind of Sylvia's specialty at this point, so let's see about fighting off this one too, even if it is a bit more joyful in nature.
The laugh urge fades. A quiet power spreads from hand to head, then down to your feet.
Thou hast done well. For what is a laugh, if not one step toward madness? Thou art the one! Return me, take me home, and thou shalt glow with blessings.
Now, before we interact further with this being, let us examine the amulet a little closer. Maybe we can find out something more about this manifestation and how it came to be. Unfortunately, even with guidance, we fail the first attempt here. Thankfully, we have plenty of inspiration stockpiled to try again.
Etched on its face is an image of the dawning sun.
And well, let's follow up on that with a religion check. What could that dawning sun possibly mean?
You recognize the symbol. It belongs to those sworn to Lathander, god of dawn and renewal. Whatever madness this spirit suffers was inflicted by Lathander's enemies, followers of Shah. And this madness may flow into you.
Right, those are not exactly intriguing prospects, so how about we try to discern what this entity wants with us?
Beneath the rampant joy, you sense the monk's fear and sincerity. He doesn't wish to harm you, but that doesn't mean he won't.
Okay, time to have a chat then. Options 2 and 3 here are mutually exclusive, and I think we get a better answer if we simply ask what happened.
A ghost! I am sunlight on water, dew on grass. Sharons broke my body, but my spirit they could not. Well, not completely. Thou shalt return me home, it is written.
Well, and where exactly should the amulet be returned to?
To thy granddaughter, Shira Clawen. Serves Ilmata, she does. She waits in Worm's Crossing. Take me there, and thou shalt bathe in her golden gifts. Oh, thou shalt be blessed indeed.
Now, we haven't heard of or come across this place yet, but, well, we are being promised blessings, so how could we refuse?
I shall walk with thee. I shall grant you my power.
And with that, let us pocket the amulet for now, just to be on the safe side.
You feel a chuckle coming on, but it soon fades.
And there we are. We have obtained the Sentient Amulet, allowing its wearer to cast the Shatter spell and giving monks some key point restoration. Unfortunately, we don't have one in our party. Now, at this point then, the easiest way to get everyone off of this platform is to just simply fast travel back to the starting area, from where we now finally want to make our way towards the Adamantine Forge.
Centuries of blazing heat have smoothed away the plaque's inscription.
And even though the plaque here is no longer legible, we still have a pretty good idea of what lies in front of us. Through various texts and conversations, we have actually learned quite a lot about this place already.
This must be the forge. What a sight to behold.
And indeed, we have reached the Adamantine Forge. Time to quickly recap what we know. First of all, we know that it was built to forge mithral into adamantine, an incredibly strong alloy used to make powerful blades and armor. We also know that the forge was used, but not built, by Ketheric Thorm and his Sharon Dark Justiciars. Perhaps most importantly then, we have also read a lot about a Forge Guardian, a protector conjured from the magma, a construct said to be so mighty that no blade could fell it and no spell could pierce it. We did, however, also find notes saying that this Guardian can be destroyed in magma, with some reference to the Forge's hammer. All in all, I think it is quite clear that we have a properly difficult fight coming up, but with the information we have gathered, not an unwinnable one. Before we jump into the big fight though, let me very quickly remind you that to celebrate the channel's 10-year anniversary, you can find a limited edition shirt and mug over on shop.petecomplete.com for the rest of the month. Until April 23rd, you can also get 10% off with promo code EARTH10. I just wanted to let you know, so that if you want something to commemorate 10 years of Pete Complete, this is your chance. Now, our first step towards securing victory is a party change, as Tarion and Gale make room for Lae'zel and Shadowheart. Important pieces of equipment for this one: the Club of Hill Giant Strength on Sylvia to raise her strength to 19, the Bow of Awareness on Karlach to ensure good initiative placement, and the Amulet of Misty Step on Shadowheart in case our plan backfires and she needs to evacuate. For now though, let's approach the forge and take a closer look at the crucible in the center here. We are asked to insert something, and well, that would be the piece of mithral ore we found earlier, so let's place it inside.
There. Just need to insert the mold.
Right, and after finding all 6 molds, we can now take our pick. Generally speaking, the 3 weapon molds are not particularly worth it. Better weapons are most likely already in our inventory, or will be very soon, so it really comes down to the 2 armors, one heavy, one medium, and the shield. Overall, the shield is probably the best option, as we have several characters who will likely wield the shield until the very end of the game, and this is one of the better ones you can find, so let's place the corresponding bolt into the chamber here. Now, at this point though, before we begin the actual forging process, let's prepare for the worst. That Forge Guardian is sure to show up any second now. So let's step back off of the platform, take a short rest to refresh some abilities, and then we are only going to send an invisible Shovel and Shadowheart forwards. Shovel will actually play a crucial role in the upcoming encounter. Her invisibility could prove useful for us in the moment. For now though, we control Shadowheart, who can now pull the lever here. And with a thunderous smash of the Forge's giant hammer, the platform suddenly starts moving downwards, away from the rest of the party, who maintains a safe distance. Still no sign of the Forge Guardian, but the forging process has also not been completed yet. I think we need to get some heat involved now, and the lava valve here will most likely help us accomplish that. Right, and there we go. Meet Grym, the eternal protector of the Forge. A massive Adamantine Golem with 450 hit points, Grym is arguably one of, if not the toughest single enemy in Act 1. It has formidable strength and a legendary action that doubles its movement speed when hit. It can actually only be damaged in the first place if it stands in magma and has the superheated condition. Otherwise, it is completely immune to damage, and even in this condition, it is immune or at least resistant to pretty much everything, except for bludgeoning damage. And that vulnerability will be the backbone of our strategy here today. Now, in order to pull this off, we want to pull our 3 other party members back a little further, a few steps higher. Then we want to start things off with Karlach, who in her inventory has a few throwable hammers. These don't seem to be capable of dealing a lot of damage, but considering her damage bonuses to throw damage, and the fact that all bludgeoning damage will be doubled, well, let's just have her throw one and see for yourself. Right, so we start things off with a casual 70 points of damage from Karlach here. 38 are actually bonus crushing damage from the hammer falling onto Grym from this high up. 32 is the actual damage of the attack itself. And, well, that is far from the end of her turn. We can now frenzy and throw again. Let's move a few steps higher though. Maybe we can squeeze out 1 or 2 extra points of crushing damage. And there we go, 76 points of damage. Grym's meager 10 temporary hit points are instantly vaporized, and the mighty Forge Guardian has just lost more than 1/4 of its health. Problem is, unlike Karlach's returning pike, these hammers don't come back, so we need someone to retrieve them. However, doing it with Shadowheart would put her into Grym's melee range, potentially vulnerable to opportunity attacks, and definitely at disadvantage for any ranged attacks herself. So this is where Shovel comes into play, who may not have an inventory of her own to pocket or transfer the hammers, but who can still move them around. And that is all we need to get them away from Grym and towards Shadowheart, who can then pick them up and transfer them to the inventory of the next thrower. This allows Shadowheart to still move freely, and Shovel can simply go invisible again if we need her to make a swift escape. For now though, we turn to Lae'zel, perhaps not quite the proficient thrower that Karlach is, but still good enough to hit for a total of 56 points of damage. Attack number 2 then connects for a further 52. This is, by the way, the beauty of this approach. The crushing damage is fixed and therefore extremely reliable. And we're not done after 2 attacks. Lae'zel can now action surge, the main reason we short rested earlier, and throw again. That one misses though, and we don't even get crushing damage. This can sometimes happen. Normally though, you can also get crushing damage even on a miss. I think it has to do with positioning and where you actually physically aim. In the grand scheme of things, with Grym already down to below half health though, I think we can take this miss. After the hammers have been retrieved and a little repositioning, Lae'zel can then throw a 4th time, and that one hits again, a further 52 points of damage, a grand total of 160 in 1 turn, definitely a new record for this playthrough. At this point, Grym looks very manageable, but we're not in the clear just yet. It is actually very important that we not only defeat it this way, but do so before it even gets a single turn. And to ensure that happens, we now need to move a bit further away with Sylvia, have her drop a haste spore grenade, one of the 2 we received from the Myconid, and then summon a mage hand, but far enough away so that it does not enter the initiative just yet. Then we make sure the summon stays where it is, while Sylvia sneaks back to her old spot and launches a hammer of her own, infused with the magical powers given to her by the Club of Hill Giant Strength. That connects for 56 points of bludgeoning and 1 point of acid damage, and we can now throw the haste spore grenade to give all 3 party members here an extra action. Then we throw a 2nd time with Sylvia, that hits for 51 points of damage in total, so with this next one here, we might already be able to finish things. And there we go. Grym, the Adamantine Protector of the Forge, is dead in 1 turn, and we unlock the A Grym Fate achievement for taking it down without using the Forge Hammer. Because normally, the game actually wants you to lure Grym onto this central platform here, where you can then deal tons of damage by crushing it with the hammer, although doing that will void the achievement, so of course we can't have that. Now, you might also think that bringing Shadowheart along was a completely arbitrary choice. After all, she wasn't much more than a glorified inventory. However, she could have cast Command Halts with a 50 or 60% success chance as an emergency option. Not really something you want to rely on, but a decent last resort. One final note then, defeating Grym in 1 turn before it can act also prevents the spawning of a few Magma Mephits, so we may have lost out on some XP, but this way we made sure not to take damage. Now, from Grym's body we can loot the Grim Skull helmet, making the wearer immune to critical hits and granting fire resistance and the Hunter's Mark spell. It is classified as heavy armor though, so the list of potential wearers is rather short. At this point, let us then raise the platform back up with a push of the button here, so that we can regroup. Now that both mold and ore have been exposed to the lava, we can also use the Forge Hammer again, and just like that, we have forged an Adamantine Shield and unlock the Forged in Blood and Fire achievement. The shield then goes onto Shadowheart. It too grants critical hit immunity and sends attackers that miss the target reeling, a condition that gives a -1 penalty to attack rolls. Crucially, this is triggered on misses, which makes it a bit more useful in my opinion than being triggered by hits, those we desperately want to avoid in this playthrough. Now, let's grab our mold and move on. We can actually forge a 2nd item if we were to acquire a 2nd piece of mithral ore, and well, luckily, there is one just around the corner here, close to where our throwing spot was. However, we don't want to just march right over to it. Let me summon Zombie Connor here and show you why. Now, I fully understand that knowing about this Magma Mephit ambush here beforehand is something you cannot really expect from everyone, especially since we did not encounter them during the fight with Grym earlier, but this is one of the few ways to avoid your party getting surprised and taking damage. So instead we'll have poor Connor get swarmed, which actually serves two purposes. Number one, of course, wasting the enemy's surprise turn, and number two, following Connor's inevitable defeat, we now have a nice cluster of Mephits here. Unsurprisingly, they are also weak to cold damage, so our opening move is this one. We make a quick party change and swap Shadowheart out for Will, equipped with the Bow of Awareness for that sweet initiative boost, who can now sneak up and cast Hunger of Hadar on the group. Yes, a 3rd level spell against these comparatively weak enemies, perhaps a bit overkill, but it ensures a surprise round, and we gain the spell slot back on a short rest, so it's not a big deal. We follow up with Sylvia, whose shot here reveals a few more Mephits, most of them also surprised, but one is not. I have honestly given up trying to understand the mechanics here. Either way, that one is now our priority target with Karlach. Finally, we have Lae'zel join the fight. A simple axe throw should suffice, certainly not her maximum damage potential, but it gets the job done well enough. Now, since Will cast his spell while he was still outside of combat, he now has another action to cast Eldritch Blast, removing the 2 highest initiative Mephits from the fight, and once we end his turn, a 3rd one also goes down. Sylvia then takes aim at the 2 creatures on the far left side here. It actually seems like the second one has not even joined the initiative order at all yet. Either way, thanks to Call the Weak, it is practically impossible for her to not kill with every shot she takes. That leaves one last enemy for Karlach. Her returning pike did once again not do what its name implies, but we have backups, and with that the fight is over. Sylvia can now quickly go and loot the Mephits. From each one we can scavenge a heart-shaped rock, an alchemy ingredient in the brewing of the Oil of Combustion, a weapon coating that applies extra fire damage. In addition, each Mephit also carries a random gemstone, and in the bookshelves over here we can also grab a few spell scrolls. Easy to overlook, as our big prize is of course the second mithral vein. Right next to it we can also find an elixir of fire resistance, a rather useful item considering the circumstances, but we may do without it. With the second piece of mithral ore in our possession then, let us now return to the Adamantine Forge. With the ore placed into the crucible, the big question now arises, what to make? And well, I spent way too much time thinking about this. Like I said, the weapons are no options in my opinion, but it was a close call between the medium and the heavy armor. Eventually I ended up going with the heavy version, simply because the game has much fewer good alternatives, and they tend to show up later in the game. Ultimately, both heavy and medium armor will become obsolete as we progress further through the story. There is also an argument to be made for simply forging a second shield, but in the end I went with the heavy armor because we'll likely get more mileage out of it than a medium suit, and if we end up selling it after it becomes replaced, it fetches a very good price, about 3 times the amount that the medium armor would sell for. We are now putting it on Lae'zel. You can see the armor bonuses displayed on screen right now. Once again, we get critical hit immunity as well as a flat damage reduction of 2 points on all incoming damage. And just like the shields, this armor can also trigger the reeling condition on attackers. However, and this is why I think the shield is a bit better, at least when it comes to this condition, for the armor this effect is triggered on hits, for the shield it triggers on misses. Overall though, we should probably not overthink all of this too much. Who knows, we might eventually also end up with Will in a simple cloth robe as our frontline tank. There is a lot of untapped potential there as well. In any case, for today, standing over the defeated Grym, we have finally done it. The Underdark chapter of this story is complete. However, while we could travel to the shadow-cursed lands from here, we do have one small area of Act 1 still left to discover, and I think we'll go there next time. We haven't quite reached the end of the episode just yet though. Now that we have sufficiently scouted everything the Underdark has to offer, let us return to our campsite and speak to the druid Halsin.
Oakfather's blessings to you.
And how about we keep things light to get us started here? Let's exchange some pleasantries and ask how he's faring at our camp.
Wonderfully. If I'm honest, the grove was too comfortable for my tastes. I felt removed from nature. I'll miss my books, but I can find all the wisdom they contain out here firsthand.
Now to this, I think we can only respond that books have not exactly been a rarity in our travels. At this point, our camp inventory chest should hold well above 100.
Is that so? Well, nature does abhor waste. I will keep watch, thank you. I had a feeling time in your company would prove fruitful.
With the small talk taken care of, let us now transition to talk about the Underdark and report to Halsin what we have found.
Impressive. Most would quake at the mere thought of delving that far into the Underdark. What did you find?
Now, unfortunately, all of the options here are lacking a bit. Sadly, there is no way to tell him about Nier, the captured gnomes, the Adamantine Forge, or even the fact that we have already found an elevator to the Shadow-Cursed lands. To sum everything up, though, Danger probably describes things very well.
I'm certain. The Underdark is dangerous, yes, but the alternative is suicide. Be patient and be thorough. The path will reveal itself in time. It may prove impossible to avoid the Shadow Curse entirely, but if you find any way to limit your exposure, seize it.
And since we are already on the topic of the Shadow Curse, let's ask a bit more about it. Could there potentially be a way to stop it altogether, so that we don't have to worry so much about it?
Perhaps. But we'll need to get closer before I can put my theory into practice. Put it from your mind for now. Once we near the curse, then there will be more to be said.
We also get the option here to inquire about potential feelings of guilt about the Shadow Curse, a topic that might be worth diving into as we are getting closer.
Well, there's hardly anyone left to share the responsibility with. Few who witnessed the fall of Moonrise still draw breath. What Ketheric Thorm unleashed is not something that nature can undo by itself. I must do what I can. I studied the Shadow Curse for years. But to truly understand it and stop it, I must reach its source.
Well, he'll have to wait for just a little while longer. For now, let's change topics and ask him about the parasite and how he knows so much about it.
I studied one up close. Closer than most would care to be to those things. A drow attacked me and I defended myself. Afterwards, I was able to examine the tadpole that emerged. Hideous, but fascinating. Like nothing else in nature, I'm glad to say.
Now, it might also be a long shot, but perhaps Halsin can help us with our other condition, one that might very well get in the way of curing the tadpole.
Everything in your mind has been destroyed from what I gathered. And from the path I see you on, you are doing well at picking up the pieces. I am here to be your ear as you bear your burdens, and the arms that protect you if you can shoulder them no more. I believe you when you tell me that your symptoms do not wholly align with the makings of the parasite. But until we remove it, I doubt we will be able to isolate the rest of your troubles.
Right, disappointing, but at the very least he takes our condition seriously, and I think that is enough for us to share some concerns with him. What if the urge becomes too strong to resist before we find a cure?
The Oakfather must have blessed you to make it this far. Or another eye above. If I had my fleet of druids and a month of hard research, perhaps I could help. But I'm no savant. For now, I can only guarantee a cure for ceremorphosis.
Right, now we're offered one final question here that takes us all the way back to the Tiefling celebration. A celebration where we might have flirted a bit with Halsin, although he did not exactly respond to our attempts. So perhaps it's best if we now clear the air about it.
There are few things that are too strong for me. And cast those regrets aside. You did not get caught up in the moment. You seized it. In other circumstances, I would have done the same.
Well, that's a curious answer to say the least. Sounds to me like there may be an interest there. let's see if we can get him to spill a bit more information.
Perhaps. But best to not dwell on nights past. There are plenty more yet to come.
Indeed, there will be, and we will also have to take a long rest eventually. For now, the benefit of Bliss Spores was just too good to lose it, but now that we have used up our last short rest, I think a full night at camp is inevitable. Still, I think we are in good shape for 1 or 2 more encounters. If there's one thing that's for certain in this series, it's that trouble has a way of finding us. And with that, I think we have reached a good point to make the cut in today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. As always, if you want to support me and my channel further, then you can go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or become a channel member or Patreon supporter. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.